So just so you know too, this is being recorded and it should be posted on YouTube today, maybe tomorrow. And you can always go back to it. We also will have like a repo. I'll get into all the like the details of exactly what we're doing um, going through this. Um, yeah, awesome. So the summer project overview. So hopefully you got an email from me or you read the description of the event about some things that you need to install. Docker, and you don't need to worry about Docker Compose. I thought you had to install that externally. You don't. So just Docker, Python. We'll talk about like the libraries and stuff as we get to it. It's not like that's anything crazy. Um, React, which you need Node, and I will talk about the quick command just to install that globally. Um, VS Code or like any code editor that you choose. Git if you want to put it onto your GitHub, and then DigitalOcean. Hopefully, this will be like at the very end. You don't need to download anything, but you should have a student account, or I think through GitHub, you have like a student education pack or something like that. If you just Google like GitHub student pack. You get like all these tools and softwares and stuff for free. You just need to like verify that you are a student, and you get like a $300 credit for DigitalOcean, which is good for about like maybe 6 months or so, depending on what VM you choose. But again, that will be at the end. I actually used all of my all of my credits already. Um, didn't know I didn't know. DL has it. Oh, yeah. So I think I'm pretty confident it's done through the GitHub education pack thing. I I could be mistaken, and you could just sign up with your student account, and you could just get $300 in credits or something like that. Everything should also work for if you're using like Oracle VM or like any. You just need a VM basically on the cloud. Um, I just chose DigitalOcean because I had the credits. So yeah. If you don't have any of these installed, you should really install them now, just because how this is going to work is it's going to be more of like a tutorial or like I'm sort of coding and you can like follow along. Um, I'll be like coding it live. So I've done this project before. That was like a year ago. So um, I'm basically just going to be going over it again and showing everybody here what what it's all about. And then hopefully by the end, you'll have a nice little thing to put on your portfolio. Um, yeah, awesome. Cool. Okay, so the goal of this. So we want to make this like movie recommendation website. So we want like our users to come to the website. There'll be like a search bar, basically like Google, and they can like put in any movie that they enjoy. For example, like Garfield. And then we want our system to produce movies that are similar to it, that they think that they would like. So, for example, I like Garfield, then I will probably like The Cat in the Hat, right? Um, and for so that's the goal for like the users. For us, we want to provide like a real practical project that isn't like a to-do list or something, and it's going to go, everybody kind of does that stuff, right? Um, I wanted something that is practical. It has like all these different elements that would be really cool to sort of implement. And we'll be doing that like step by step. There's a little bit of machine learning. There's some web stuff. There's some Docker stuff. We have a very small amount of API stuff. Yeah, so it should be really fun. I enjoyed this project before. Yeah, awesome. So how everything is going to be like structured is we're going to split it up into multiple parts. We're not going to do everything today. Um, and in fact, we won't even do everything in 2 sessions. It'll probably be around like 5 or 6. Um, Again, this is being recorded, so you can always like come back and check it out if you miss a week or something like that. It should be about every week or every 2 weeks or something like that. Yeah. I'm yeah. Um, and then each like part will be focusing on like one or two like system processes. For example, today we're looking at the overview and we're just going to get our like Docker containers set up. Um, and that should take us about maybe 40-ish minutes, that sort of thing. Um, but sometimes it might take more time. So, for example, I'm thinking like the React stuff and like styling in particular might take a little bit longer than one session, just because when we're doing React, we're building the like the frames of it basically, or like all the tags and everything, and then going to style it. Sometimes based on what you want, it might take a little bit of time. Um, so we might like push that into the next session and that sort of thing. But yeah, um, it's very much like a like kind of like school, as much as I hate to say it, where every week we'll focus on like one new piece. Yeah. So today is the overview and the setup of the development environment or Docker. So we'll look at Docker Compose and the front end and back end just very quickly. We're really not going to be coding much of anything. Um, I think next week or the week after, I should just say the next session, we'll look at like the machine learning. We'll get the data set. We'll like build the machine learning um, engine, I want to say, and then we'll be able to get recommendations. And that will just be right through the like terminal or through like our Python script. So it's not going to be hooked up yet, basically. Next, we'll look at Flask and Nginx. So Flask is like what we're going to use for our API, and then Nginx will be used as like a reverse proxy. These two I might move it to like the end or something. Um, but basically, Flask we want to go to a certain URL and then have that query our machine learning engine and it will return some JSON or something like that. And we want Nginx to say, yes, the session is being recorded. We want Nginx to be like, okay, do you want the React or do you want the back end, the machine learning stuff? If this is all going over your head, that's okay. uh, again, this is like focused at like beginners or people that just want something on their portfolio that is good for like finding co-ops or jobs or something like that. Yeah. So session number 4, hopefully, we'll look at React and just like front end UI. So we'll build the React like outline basically. We'll style it. This is where it gets to a bit of a stretch. Just calling the API and calling. We're going to use movies DB just to get some like metadata of the movies. Um, we're going to call those two things. That might be pushed into a different session or something. But that sort of area we'll look at like React and front end stuff. Um, yeah. And then lastly, the very, very last thing we'll do is pushing it into the cloud and getting a domain. I believe with that GitHub education pack thing too, there's like .tech domains that you can get for a year for free. So you can use that or like you can just buy any domain really. They're pretty cheap. So you might need to do that. And then um, we'll be pushing it to the cloud using DigitalOcean. Um, yeah, this might change depending on how we are doing. Um, but I sat down and tried to think of the best way to do this, and I thought that this was it. Although now that I'm looking at it, Flask and Nginx might be moving to in between the front end and the cloud stuff. Awesome. So, what to expect? I know mistakes will be made. I'm also learning too. I did this project like a year ago. I used like a lot of tutorials and stuff to help me. But now I want to go um, like through it again with a little less help. So just expect that I'm going to make mistakes. I think we're all going to end up making mistakes here and there. Yeah, but by the end, you'll have like a really cool project that you'll be able to say like, okay, go to this website and put in your favorite movie and be actually be able to use it, which is a really cool feeling. Yeah, and you can like apply a lot of the other skills to other recommendation systems. Um, you could literally just like swap out the data sets and change one or two things in the like machine learning stuff, and have like a book recommendation system, if you didn't want to do movies. Um, yeah, and other things too, right? So yeah. And lastly, yeah, events will be recorded, and there's also a GitHub, that is going along with us, and that is available on our GitHub too. Awesome. So I was trying to think of ways to, uh, you know, have prizes and stuff. So I think what might be really good is, at the end, if you submit, your project either through like GitHub or, like a domain or something like that, we can check it out, see if it is all working, and it doesn't have to be fantastic or anything. Um, but uh, basically, if you're done the project, you would be entered to getting, some like cracking the code interview books, or clean code, which is, a really highly recommended book, for like writing clean code. Also some like GDSC mugs, maybe some stickers and stuff, and just like other swag. Um, the only caveat here is you just have to complete your project. Um, yeah, and submit it in the Google form. That's not created yet. That'll be at the very end. Um, yeah. Uh, cool. Okay. Let's get started. Are we okay? Is everybody doing okay? VS Code in a Chromebook. That is a great question. I have no idea. So you could do VS Code in, there's like a VS Code in browser. If you just Google that, you can. It's literally just VS Code in the browser, um, and you can open up like repos and stuff. I'm not sure how it it works with like running React. I don't think you'd be able to like run Docker, or anything. But this project, you don't necessarily need Docker. You can just do it all in like a React and Python thing. Um, yeah, I'm not too sure on how to help you there. I'm sorry. Um, this is being recorded too, so if you need to figure that out and then come back too, that works as well. Awesome, cool. I am just going to slap the, GitHub in the comments here, just in case if anybody needs it. I am starting very fresh, so I just have a folder called movie recommender open. It's blank. There's nothing in it. I already made a, repo, um, and I made it public. I didn't select a, template because I want to control our like, um, dot get ignore, and no readme. So yeah, awesome. So hopefully I should be able to just copy this guy and paste it in here. Cool. Awesome. Um, yeah. Okay. Still all good. I know I didn't do a lot. I do. So the like first things that we want to do, I'm gonna make sure I have, Docker running here, is, there's ultimately going to be three different containers. We'll have our React container, which we'll be calling the front end. We'll have our back end, container, which will have like the Flask and the machine learning sort of stuff. And then we'll have another one for the Nginx proxy. And then, uh, yeah, no, that's it. Um, Now we like use Docker Compose, to run all these separate, containers just through like one quick command. It makes life a lot easier than, having to like manually type in Docker run front end, blah, 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 Docker run back end, blah, 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 blah. We can just say Docker compose up and boom, it's good. It also sort of treats it like everything is in its own container in a sense. It's not quite a dev environment, but it's almost like that. Where you get that like sense that it's all contained um, together with separate containers in it. Yeah. So, first things first, if you haven't got React, um, let me also, can everybody see this okay? I don't want to blind anybody by using light mode. But if anybody has difficulty like seeing the like contrast or anything like that, just let me know. So for React, we need to install, so npm install -g, create React app. I already have it installed here, but what this will do is install the create React app library for Node globally. That's what the -g is. And we want that because if we omit it and we try and do it, we have to like have the React app sort of uh, outside its front end like container or file, and we don't want that. We want everything to do with the front end inside of front end. So yeah, just install it globally there. This might take some time too if you don't have it already installed. Yeah. So now our next step is to create our React app. So we'd use npx create React app, and we'll give it a name of front end. Awesome. And we can see here that there's a folder created. Well, it's still creating, and we'll populate it with some stuff there. Just might take some time. With Docker and Node too, it loves to uh, be slow. I want to say so. There'll be a lot of waiting, unfortunately. Awesome. So in our front end here, we got a bunch of stuff. I'm going to delete the README because we don't need it. We definitely need the package lock stuff. This git ignore, I'm actually going to just pull it out because I want it on everything here. Uh, in source, we can get rid of setup tests and report web vitals and app.tests.js. And we should still all be good. So it's really just all the tests stuff and analytics. Awesome. And everything else should be good to go there. Now we want to also make a folder for the backend here. Sorry, I'm just switching over to Ubuntu here. Oh. Awesome. So we have the front end and we have a backend folder now. The next thing that we can make is our Docker compose file. So it's called Docker compose dot YAML, so YMAL. You can see that guy got loaded into. How are we doing? Good? Someone just give me a yes, we're doing okay. Okay, I got something. I got a dot. So I'm gonna assume that means we're good. Okay, cool. So in the back end, we'll start there. So in the back end, we want to make a file just called Docker file. That's Docker with a capital D and no space in between Docker and file. And there's no end extension. It's purely just Docker file. Uh, Now, if we open it up, um, if you're using like an icon pack too, you'll see it has the little Docker whale on it. And it'll give us some errors here. It's perfectly okay. So what a Docker file is the command to do when it's running. So the compose file will say, okay, make a Docker container with this port, this volume, all these things. The Docker file will say, okay, when I start, I got to do this and this and this. Um, yeah, you can do it from whatever directory you want. The question was, I noticed that you're using OneDrive. Is there a reason for it, or can you do it from whatever directory you want? You can do it from whatever directory you want. It doesn't matter. I just put all of my GDSC stuff in my OneDrive. So with Conestoga, you get like a terabyte. So trying to use that. Yeah. So the Docker file is when it starts running, we want to say run this command or start this Python script or um, copy these files over, that sort of thing. It's when it's like inside, I want to say. It also specifies exactly like how to build the Docker file or the Docker container. And I can, it says, what to install. Says what to install and how to work. Could you explain a little bit what it says to install? The Docker file. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly that. So from the first line in your Docker file will be like what to install or like what's the base image, basically. Um, and for the backend, we're using Python. So it's from Python. You can specify um, the like version. I use 3.9 Slim Buster. The next line here, workdir, is what directory Docker will be in, like what its working directory is, right? And so in Linux, there's like a users something app directory. That's where we want to be when we're pushing all these files and stuff in. So we got that. We're going to copy a requirements file, which we'll make in a second. We want to run the requirements. So run pip install -r requirements.txt. We'll use this copy dot dot to copy everything that's in the current directory in here into our Docker container. So I know we already copied this, but it's okay to copy, use the copy command a couple times. That's fine. Yeah. And then to end it off, we want to just say command Python. We'll start running an app.py script. Go ahead and save this. I'm going to go back to my terminal and I want to make a app.py file. And I also want to make a require events.txt. Awesome. So in our app.py, we're just going to do a little print hello world just to make sure everything works. And And then in our, actually, we don't need anything in the requirements just yet. Yeah. So just the app.py, we need to write something in. Awesome. And that is the backend Docker stuff pretty much done. There's some steps in the Docker Compose that we'll have to do, but we won't do that yet. Uh, our next step is to do the front end Docker file stuff. So I'm going to cd and go into the front end, and then again, touch Docker with a capital D file. Awesome. Now, React, if you Google like React running in Docker, there's like a templated Docker configuration that like I guess everybody uses for it. So we're going to be pulling from that. So that one is from Node. So we're going to use a Linux Alpine, I believe, um, that has Node in it, and that will be like our base image. We want to set the work directory again as app. We're going to copy the package.json into the working directory. We also want to just set the environment path here. And then we also want to copy our package, our package lock.json. We'll run npm install. We'll copy all of our files. We'll say npm start. And that is everything for the front end other than the compose stuff. Awesome. So let us test this stuff out here. So when we're using Docker without Docker Compose, we need to build the image and then run the image. It's a two-step process here. So in our front end, I'm just going to show you how you do this outside of Docker Compose. So we run docker build -t for tag front end, and I'm just going to name the tag init and this current directory. So if I do that, Docker should build with no issues. Whilst I'm waiting for this, any questions? Anybody having some issues or anything? I make it look easy because of GitHub Copilot, which if you're a student, I think you get it for free. So getting hard, changing the directories. Yeah. So I think with Mac too, because I'm using WSL, which is Windows Subsystem for Linux, what it does is it takes like your Windows and says, okay, we're going to pretend that it's Linux. So when I use Linux commands at work, so I'm more familiar than Windows commands. So you can actually just use your Windows system like Linux. So all the commands, like the touch, the CD, all that stuff, should be the same if you are a Mac user as well. And if you're not familiar with VS Code shortcuts, I know that there's like a billion. I don't know many of them. Control P will open up like your files. So I can search up like package.json and you'll see like that's in the front end. So that's a little bit easier than using your mouse to jump over here. If you need to like do something in VS Code, Control Shift P, um, you have like all the commands at your fingertips. So you don't even need to remember the shortcuts. I can do like, I use word wrap a lot. So I can quickly toggle that stuff. Like formatting my document or something, right? And then to like jump from your editor to the terminal, it's like control uh, back apostrophe, the one underneath escape. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, awesome. So let me take a peek at Docker here. I might have a bunch of images here, but you can see there's a front end image that was less than a minute ago. Uh, so our image was created based on all this stuff here. I need to run it now. So Docker run -it for integrated terminal. Uh, --remove is to remove it after we close it. -p specifies a port. So we're going to do 3000, 3000. Oh, yeah. And then, sorry, I missed something. We need to write what image to use. So just to put it all together, Docker space run space -it for integrated terminal, dash or space --rm for remove when we're done, space -p for port, space 3000:3000, and then our tag, so whatever we called it. In my case, I called it front end : init. So I know that React uses 3000 as its like default, at least I'm pretty sure, as its default port. The web vitals. Yes, 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 yes. I goofed up and not here. It's yeah, in the index is going to ask for report web vitals, which we don't want, and I got rid of it. So so as I was saying, Docker or React uses port 3000 and under app source. Okay, we're going to use this guy. Yeah, sorry, missed that again. My bad. The Docker file is still running. So if your Docker file, is still building. But if you ever have like issues with your Docker, because sometimes if you miss that like --rm or -it, it will push it into the background, and then you won't know that it's running until your system might like get slow or something like that. So always just checking like what containers you have running in Docker Desktop, or it's like Docker-ps or Docker PS or something like that to show all your running containers. Yeah, and then in here you can just stop it or delete it or whatever if that's ever an issue. Okay, okay, let's try it one more time. Okay, this is why, good lesson, you don't delete files until you got rid of everything here. In source index.js, but there isn't anything in here. Anybody know? Anybody know what what I'm missing? Because it does not find it in the files here. Oh, you know why? This is a very good lesson. Is it's because I built it um, with the files. I believe. I believe. I think that's what it is. So already making our first mistakes. That's okay. I am going to remove this and we will rebuild it again. Sorry about that. Is there any way to not build it again? Great question. I don't think so because it's taking the files from the front end and being like, okay, this is your operating system now. It's like a game that doesn't have like internet to like update or something like that. And you like pass it out, right? You don't have any way of like changing the files that were on it. Same sort of thing. But whilst we're waiting, everybody else doing okay still? Yeah, that's okay. So someone said, very new to Docker. I'm just following you, to be honest. What does building the Docker file do? Great question. So our Docker is like a way to like containerize um, like processes or systems. Think of it sort of like a VM, but much lighter. It's still using your hardware. It's just in an isolated environment. So like Windows can see into the Docker container, but the Docker container can't necessarily see out. Um, so it's like an isolated environment. It's heavily used now when like spinning up things like I use that in my co-op. I'm pretty sure like Amazon and stuff use it as well. It's very it's used a lot in the industry. I want to say, and so what building it does is saying, okay, take this information. This is like the operating system of the container that we want, right? The where we want our work directory, what files we need to like pass into the container, what commands we should start doing in order for the container to run or do stuff. Um, Building it set like we'll take all of this information and take the files in our front end and put them into this like Linux uh, virtual machine or container. Um, and so we have to build it first um, to get all the files and stuff in there, and then we end up running it. So think of it like making a copy of like Windows doesn't necessarily mean that you're running Windows. It just means you have uh, Windows on like a USB or something, and then you can go to your computer and plug it in and run Windows. Okay, so someone said so like a minimal resource using VPS in your local system. Is this understanding good? Um, Let me double check. I don't exactly know virtual private server, the VPS. I've heard it before. I don't know the caveats and differences to it. Um, okay, so a VPS by definition is a virtual private server. Is a virtual machine sold as a service by an internet hosting service. Um, Kind of. I want to say yes because I think your thinking is correct, but it's not. Mm, I think there's some other things to it. Think of it more as a VM that's like lighter resource. There's no UI. There's none of that stuff. It's just like a spot or a place on your system that is running an operating system that doesn't know anything about the outside. It thinks it's a separate computer, whereas your host machine, my Windows machine here, will know that there's multiple of these smaller computers and stuff inside. How can we move this project to a GCP? Yeah, great question. My best advice is boot up a virtual machine in GCP. I believe everybody gets $300 credit when you sign up. Yeah, I think there's also a free virtual machine instance that you can get as well. If you do that, then um, you could SSH. I think you're on the Chromebook, so I think you might be able to like SSH from uh, your like Visual Studio in browser into it. That way you have like all the tools um, in VS Code. Um, like if I click this, I could connect to like a virtual machine outside. Um, so there's that. Or if you just open that VM, there is a button that says like SSH terminal or something like that. If you click that, you can code everything, but you're going to be doing it in the terminal. So if you're comfortable with that, that's a good option. We use we use the same sort of setup at work where it's like a GCP VM. I just SSH into it using Visual Studio, and it works very well. Um, that's what I suggest. I guess in the grand scheme of things, at the very end, we will be moving it to a cloud provider. So you'll just be doing the last step first. That's all. Awesome. Okay. Now that those answers or questions are answered, we rebuilt. Let's hope that this works. Awesome. Okay. So if I click this guy, we can see a React app is running, right? Our localhost 3000. But what it might not seem like is we're actually going from my host computer, right? From this Firefox web browser, we're going maybe to my router or to the NIC card in my computer, and it's trying to describe this. It's bouncing back to the local host to the Docker container, and it's actually passing through the Docker container. So if we change that, um, where am I? If we change that port number from like dash P 3000 to 3000 to like 5000 colon 3000, we would be going to localhost 5000 and still getting this React page. So this React is running on Docker and we're able to access it. Yeah. It sounds a lot cooler. Doesn't look very cool, but that's what we're doing here. Um, and we can see that our front end is running on port 3000 and React is running in that. And we said for React to start in our Docker file. So that's how everything sort of fits together there. I'm going to close this. I am going to stop this and delete it as well because we don't really need it. Um, we could do the same thing with the backend, but we don't have to build anything because we can use Docker Compose. So what Docker Compose is a YAML file, which is sort of like JSON, where we can specify that like Docker build dash P 3000 whatever blah 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 Um, we just have to specify that once, and then we can just say Docker compose up. Boom! It will build everything. It will push everything up, have it running. You can set little dependencies and stuff, which is really cool. Um, and it should just all work. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do right now. So we'll start with our version. So I'm using version 3. I think there is some newer versions. I'm just gonna stick with 3. We gotta write server. This is where we're going to be specifying like our front end, our back end. Later on, we'll be specifying our reverse proxy. So here, I'm just going to say front end. We will say we want to, our build is in the front end folder. So this should find the Docker file within the front end folder. We need to specify our volumes as well. Oops. Our volumes, which should be pretty much this, but I'm going to specify user source app. So on this side, it's our host machine, our Windows machine. On the other side is the Docker container, the Linux machine. So we want to map whatever's in this front end file. We're going to map that to the user app or user source app file. We need to specify the ports. And our ports here are 3000, 3000. And I did mention dependencies. I am going to depend it on the backend because I don't want this to build unless the backend is up and running. Right? I don't want any user to be able to break the front end if the back end isn't working. So I'm just going to say, okay, front end, as long as the back end is up and running, you will be up and running. Awesome. And that's really it. We just got to do the back end now, which is very similar. Other than this one does not depend on anything. So we got back end, specifying our build, which is where our Docker file is. That's in /backend. Specifying the volumes, saying everything in the backend folder, we're going to map to user source app. Specifying the ports, which is 5000, 5000, 5000, 5000. And wait, it is restart always. And the restart always is going to restart our Docker container anytime that the script is done, anytime that there's issues with the container, anything like that. That way, when if a user does break it somehow, right, entering in, I don't know, a large string of words and numbers and stuff, and it somehow breaks the Python script, if it fails, an exception is thrown, right? The container might crash or something like that. We just want it to restart without us having to intervene. Um, yeah, that's what this restart always does. Yeah, and that is everything. We will have our Nginx service. That will be later on though. But this is everything we need in the Docker Compose. Sorry, I will show this. How are we doing? Okay. Okay, awesome. So now, Docker compose. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong directory here. So as long as we're in the directory where our docker dash compose is, we just have to say docker compose up, and it will create the containers and it will start running them. We can see that the hello world is happening a bunch of times. That's because anytime that script is done, we're going to restart. Um, and let's see, we still got React. So both the backend and the React are up and running. Let's look at this guy here. Yeah, you can see, our front end is up, our back end is up. It's just restarting because it just needs to print hello world. But if I put a sleep or something in there, or a loop or something, it would stay running. But yeah, awesome. To get out of this too, you just spam Control C. Cool. Is there any questions on this at all? Or is everybody okay? That's what I should ask. Because if there isn't anything, that is actually our first thing. We get this error, services.backend.volume must be a list. Must be a get or must be a list. Must be a list. I don't know. Make sure that YAML files require indentations. So check that, and make sure you have the dashes as well. I can send this in the chat too. Although it might be formatted. Yeah, might have formatted it awfully. But yeah, try that because I'm assuming that if your volumes are like this, it will be like it'll look at volumes. Yeah, okay, and not know that this is the list here. Yep, and someone also asked, is there a way to ping you after the presentation if we have questions or issues? Yeah, in here I am somewhere. I appear offline, but yeah, you can just ping me on Discord if you have Discord. That's the best way. Doesn't necessarily have the Docker file when we have the Docker compose. I am not exactly sure because I think we are able to specify the build. Like we are able to say like, okay, use Node or use Python as a base here. But I think the advantage of splitting it up here is we can say like, okay, run this. You probably can in Docker Compose, but it might get kind of long and wonky. I think it's a lot nicer to say these are the commands that we are going to be that I would have typed in right into this terminal, whereas this Docker file is saying um, what to do when the Docker container is opened. But let me actually check that. Yes, you can. So there's in Docker Compose, there are some other tags like image. Oh, well, you saw it there. Image that you can use instead of the from. And there's also like commands, which obviously you can say npm start. So if you didn't want to use the Docker file, you could probably get away with doing this stuff here too. Um, yeah, but I am going to warn you that when we when we are programming in just the back end or just the front end, um, I'm probably not going to be using Docker Compose. Only because if I make changes in one, I don't want to have to build both systems. I just want to, if I change the back end, right? I just want to re-update the back end. So what I might do, or what you might want to do, is just run, right, like this Docker file when we're working on the back end, and this Docker file when we're working on the front end. That way, we don't have to take so much time to rebuild and everything. Um, okay. So your movie recommender back end is saying it cannot open app.py because there's no such file in the directory. Um, okay, I that sounds like you made the file already. So just double check uh, that you are doing this copy. I'm trying to think because you should be. Was. Hmm. Oh, it was. Oh, okay. There you go. Awesome. Um, so yeah, that's that's really it. I know we didn't get very far, but this is a very like foundational step with Docker, and hopefully you learned a little bit of how to use Docker Compose, how to get Docker files like set up and everything. Um, it's really important to like learn this because a lot of the industry is like moving towards having these like specialized environments um, where you code. So you just be coding in this Docker container and that sort of thing. Um, so it's good to have. Um, where can we access the recording? Yeah, we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com. Let me pull it up here. GDSC Conestoga. We have a thing here. I can slap this guy in the chat. Should be able to access it there, and then it should be up in maybe today, tomorrow. I'm gonna say tomorrow. If you're a part of the Discord too, you get a little notification in our channel that says the video is uploaded. Awesome. So the like last stuff that I want to do is commits. Now I see that there's all this node stuff, which is not ideal. Right. Well, definitely did not make 10K changes in our files here. So I'm just going to check out the git ignore here. I think I just need to add the front end. I think maybe should be able to just say There we go. So in our git ignore, if you are using Git, um, I just had to add the package dash lock JSON and package.json because those will hold all this stuff, all these changes, I think. Awesome. And everything looks good here. I'm going to do part one, Docker configuration. Say 1.0. Commit, stage it, sync it. Yes, please. Done. And let's just check this guy. Awesome. So now in our GitHub too, we have all of this stuff as well. I'm going to change the README and I'm just going to throw in the Docker commands here. To build is Docker build -t. To run. This is an excellent test of my memory. Docker run -it -srm-p. And then I forgot this, and then the container name. Cool, and then the last one here. That is not how I want it to look. There we go. Awesome. Cool. So that's everything. I will hang out here for another like 5 minutes or whatever, but thank you for joining. Should get a email notification maybe for next week or the week after. Yeah, on the machine learning stuff, which the machine learning thing is actually pretty cool. And we're not using like chat or anything like that. We're going to be using um, some, I believe it's like natural language processing on like descriptions and looking at like um, similarity scores with like genres and like tags and audience and that sort of thing. Um, and even I think even like casting and stuff too is all like in the mix. And then we like rank movies by that, and then um, uh, like find recommendations based on that. So it's really cool. I highly recommend even just coming to that one is good. Yeah. If there's any other questions, I'm here. I'll put this one up. Yeah. Thank you. Hopefully it's chill and relaxed. Yeah. So you should get an email. I know the platform spams like 4 emails every event. Should get a thing on there. There should be a notification in the Discord too. Um, yeah. You should get something. You should be notified. Yep. You are welcome. Thank you for coming. You move the yes, I moved it from the front end file um, out one because we're not using like Git for just the React app. We're using Git on both the back end and the front end. So I just moved it out, and then added these two package lock and package. Yeah, it's kind of funky. Um, if it's If it's showing the node modules, you could just like if you right click and click on like copy relative path, you could throw that in here too, I believe. That should hopefully get rid of it. You might just have to play around with like the different directories and stuff to make sure you're not going to commit 10,000 files. You should only be committing like 20 ish. Awesome. I believe in you. Awesome. That's everything. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the summer. Hopefully, see you next week or the week after. Okay. Thank you, everybody.